Hey again, let's take a look at the thinking pathway for division. This is similar to subtraction. So when we're looking at the thinking pathway for division, first we're going to compare the two numbers in the fact, then we're going to connect to what we know about multiplication, and finally we're going to plan and solve. So for division, just like with subtraction, we're leaning into the inverse operation. We're leaning into multiplication. So first off, let's just talk about the identity property. So with the identity property, that would correspond to multiplying by 1 with multiplication, but there's two ways to look at it with division. So let's say I had 4 divided by 1, right? Oh, let me share my screen here. I have 4 divided by 1. And so I know because of that identity idea that we're going to have a total of 4. If I have a set of 4 and I put them into one group, I have a set of 4 and I put it into one group, I still have 4, right? Now, the other way we need to think about this is 4 divided by 4, right? If I have a set of 4 and I split it into 4 groups, I can see that I have a total of 1. So that identity idea still plays out in division, but because with multiplication, you had the commutative property, you can multiply in any order and the total's still the same. Now when we're dividing, we're still starting with the same number either way, but whether we divide by 1 or we divide by 4, we're still dealing with that identity the identity element. So make sure that your kids have a chance to play with that idea. That takes a little while to settle in. It's not where I usually start. To be honest, I usually start with repeated addition and skip counting. And so here it's not really repeated addition, it's really repeated subtraction. But I'll be honest with you, asking students to count backwards can be really, really challenging. So really what I tend to do is lean into what they know about skip counting. So if we have 45 divided by 5, I'm going to look right here. I'm going to compare those two numbers and I'm going to look for a relationship. What's the relationship between 45 and 5? Oh, yeah, I know this is a fives fact, right? I can count by fives till I get to 45, and I'm going to find out that that's 9. But let's flip that for a second. Let's say I have 45 divided by 9. That's not so obviously a fives fact, right? So now, first off, I would hope that if the kids compared this, if they know multiplication very, very well, that they would see that there's this relationship that, oh my goodness, I knew that 5 times 9 was 45. And therefore, we can use a skip counting strategy, but we're not actually skip counting as much as we are just thinking about how those are related to one another. Really thinking of that idea of the fact family, right? We did this way back once upon a time, that 45 connects 5 and 9. So 5 times 9 is 45. 45 divided by 9 is 5. 45 divided by 5 is 9. So we're leaning into that idea, hoping that kids will really start seeing those relationships. But maybe they don't. Maybe they don't see that right away. So what we might want to do is if we had 45 divided by 9, I'm going to lean down here into the break apart idea that, you know what, I might know that 9 times 2 is 18 and 9 times 2 is 18, and I need another 9. So I can see that it took 2, 4, 6 nines, right? I can decompose that 45 to help me figure out that 45 divided by 9 is 5. So using this break apart idea can be helpful with the kids. It just takes a little more thinking because now you're working with the total, that beginning number, the dividend, if you will, and then trying to see what is that relationship with the divisor. So, helping them see these relationships can be really, really helpful. So, if they can see this relationship to begin with, then also using doubles and halves. So, I would hope that if I have my students that they see 16 divided by 8, that they would remember that relationship, right? Between 8 and 16. 8 is half of 16, therefore, there are two eights in 16. If I had 32 divided by 8, I would hope that the kids could think, oh, yeah, double 8 was 16, double 16 was 32. And so when I double, that's when I'm leaning into my fours, right? Or if I have 64 divided by 8, that might be a number that the kids just start remembering because that's one of the square numbers, right? But here, once again, if we're going to look at that relationship, and then we can use what we know about multiplication, that maybe we thought, double 8 was 16, and then double was 16, and 16 is 32. And then double, 32 and 32, oh, that was 64. So when I double, that is one of my 8 facts, right? So all of this to say, when you're working on your division facts, lean into what you know about multiplication. And that is where your students are going to get the biggest bang for the buck. So you want them first to be comparing the two numbers, the dividend and the divisor, looking for that relationship and using what they know about multiplication to help them with division. I hope this was helpful. One last look at our thinking path for division. We are looking at this idea that when you are dividing, first you want to compare the two numbers, the dividend and the divisor, then connect to what you know about multiplication, then plan and solve. And just as with all the other facts, be sure that you're leaning into all the different ways for kids to represent their thinking and focusing on those arrows, focusing on the connections between their representations. And we are just about finished with today. One more video. I will meet you there to look at some final thoughts.